Each had its own superstar, kind of like having your favorite James Bond or your favorite Batman, depending on the year you were born or simply when the violence or the competition of MMA started to interest you. Whoever was the biggest star at the time was probably the one to get you into the sport. Obviously, millions of people from outside of MMA.
Because I ain't gonna lie, I started watching John Jones. But Connor got me into it. You feel me? Let me know in the comments who got y'all into the sport. Let me know in the comments who's y'all favorite of all time. Let me know right now. Let y'all know right now, Connor is my favorite.
Found out about the sport because of Conor McGregor. And the same thing can be said about a new, younger generation of people with Israel Adesanya. But for the people of 2005, the UFC crossed over into mainstream culture perhaps more than it ever had done before because of one man.
The man who's about to walk out on this stage is one of the baddest men you'll ever see. Ladies and gentlemen, say hi to Chuck Liddell.
Chuck Liddell. Chuck Liddell. I thought his name was Liddell.
Backed by Dana White, his former manager and now president of the UFC, Chuck Liddell KOs his way to a place among the iconography of pop culture of the mid-2000s. But like all things, it's about to come to a screeching halt at the hands of one man. So what do you get when you take a street kid from Memphis who grew up taking drugs and fighting with adults and give him some direction and a chance to change his life? One dedicated athlete, that's what you get. And up until the point...
Finish him.
What the? Was that Rampage for real? Y'all told me to look at Rampage, so we here. I'm telling y'all, I'll be looking in the comments. I'll be commenting back. I'll be listening. So we here, but let me know in the comments y'all want to react to next or discover next. Any legends, any highlights, let me know. But
change his life. One dedicated athlete.
He dropped him on his head.
And up until the point that Quinton Rampage Jackson found out that wrestling at college wasn't pro wrestling, but actually a sport he could compete in, his life didn't really have a lot of meaning.
I just grew up super tough, man. Wrestling changed my life when I was 17. I was in the 9th grade. I was heading for prison, you know what I'm saying? They taught me how to like sell drugs, and I was drinking and smoking cigarettes, and they used to always tease me because I have a really bad temper, and I used to hyperventilate when I used to lose my temper. So I started punching and beating up the holes in the wall and stuff like that.
Oh, he really crazy.
It just made me like really mean. That's why my cousin named me Rampage.
So this young kid finds a combat sport, realizes he can make something of himself. Shit, Rampage even becomes an honors student.
And I was smoking weed and selling drugs, and then one of my friends got killed, like one of the last ones got killed. I said, man, fuck this shit, man. I'm like, man, I've been changing my life around. I quit smoking weed. I quit smoking cigarettes. I quit drinking. I was doing all this shit since 8 years old.
But after coming out of a childhood on the streets,
the fuck? 8?
And after a crazy family dynamic, Rampage was already mad at the world and he was about to be handed another stinking fat reason to be.
So one of my teammates was racist and he hit me in the mouth with a payphone. He had already put a knife on me before.
Payphone?
I got close to him. I don't know why. And he jabbed me in the mouth with the payphone receiver, and he went to the hospital and I went to jail.
Because you fucked him up after that.
Tried to kill him.
Oh, shit.
Quinton was immediately kicked out of college and out of the wrestling program, and in an instant, everything he'd been working towards was taken away from him.
That was like a big learning lesson for me. I wish Coach Bojo was there. I wish he was there that day.
Jackson went to prison for 47 days, and to add another layer of salt, he was sentenced the day before his birthday. So just when you think Rampage might have a problem with authority, here they are taking away pretty much the only dream he's ever had. Rampage was off the wrestling team, but a friend that he trained with had recently taken up MMA and took Quinton to a regional show in Memphis, and one of the fights he watched that night turned out to be a future opponent.
You a great guy.
He gonna choke somebody. The guy tapped out. The referee stopped the fight, and he put his foot in the guy's face and pushed him off. And I said, I want to fight that guy. He's a fucking dick.
Now that guy turned out to be Mike Pyle, who some of you might know, but essentially would go on to be a true veteran of the sport and the UFC. On his record, it actually says this was his first fight, but according to Mike, he was about 5-0 at this point. So clearly something was unofficial.
I already didn't have any training. I didn't know anything about jiu-jitsu. I had to revert back to my wrestling because I didn't know how to strike. I tried to throw him out the ring because I got tired.
Unbelievably, Jackson managed to beat him as basically just a wrestler. But the fight had been a 205 catch weight, and Mike actually weighed in at 175 pounds. So that was a guy called Jeff Mullen who put on that regional show. He is now the head of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, if you recognize his name. But it was his words that night that inspired Rampage.
And it's all because of Jeff Mullen that I even became a fighter. He was like, man, you beat the champion of Memphis, and you might as well be a fighter. I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right.
Rampage would end up training with Jeff for 6 6 months before that same friend who invited him to the show moved out to California and begged Jackson to join and train with him. This actually ended up being
That's
a
a
decision
great
that Rampage
friend,
said
boy.
he regrets. Of course,
a
we're about
great
to tell the
friend.
story of a guy who completely disrupted an MMA timeline, but leaving his family and moving away to California was clearly very hard for Rampage.
You know, I left everything back in Memphis and I moved to California. I left everything, my family, my car, my job. My little sister was 8, so I helped raise her. You know what I'm saying? I used to change her Pampers, and I don't know my sister anymore. You know, I don't know my family, so.
So Jackson started this new life out in California, where he began his MMA journey that was at the start of the year 2000.
I didn't know.
And
This
in
is
just over a year,
crazy.
he fought almost every single month.
Just 1 year after his California debut, he won the King of the Cage super fight title, and then he defended it just 3 weeks later.
Now, after going 10-1, Rampage next becomes one of the few select
Show
American
me
fighters
some.
to receive a call to fly out to Japan and compete in
Pride.
Pride FC. Quinton was actually
That's
at
what
the
we're here
airport
for.
when he was apparently arrested for a probation violation, so the Pride execs flew over and actually paid his bail.
That's how you know you Himothy. Is that Baz Rutten? Hey, that's how you know you Himothy, though. The prosecutor, we gotta pay for him. Yeah, we need him. We might as well go ahead and make that payment for real. I'm just saying.
You had that problem, right? So they locked him up in Orange County in the jail here. So then
LAX. Yeah.
LAX. So they came over to fly to make pictures to release him from jail, and you just came out of jail with the chain. You know, that was
That's
a perfect
hard.
storytelling.
Rampage was going over to Japan to face Kazushi
That's hard.
Sakuraba in his Pride debut.
The #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world.
And his arrival was way more of a spectacle than it seemed to be serious.
Did Pride try and make you pretend you were homeless or something at first?
Yeah. And people in Japan believed it. Like at the time, I wasn't homeless. I lived in like a RV at the time. They were trying to say that I was like on the streets and just eating out of trash cans and all this stuff. I just went along with it. I was like, you know what? They're paying me cash money.
But here's Rampage heading to Japan for the first time, even though he's basically being just used to prop up their star.
I get to kick some people's ass without going to jail. I get to kick ass and I get paid for it. Sakuraba better come out hard because I'm ready. I'm ready to come here and fight. I'm ready to brawl. Just come out hard.
Apparently, Rampage was made to cut 26 pounds in just one day. And honestly, from those interviews, it certainly looks like it. Pride didn't even have any weight classes then, so you know some kind of dodgy shit was going on.
They were trying to get me to lose like I think close to 30 pounds, right? Yeah, it was bad because it was no weight class. And you too strong, you too big for them, so you gotta cut this weight.
What?
So I called the fight off. Nah, my guy was like, man, we came out with Japan. I don't have to do it. I was like, man, fuck that. I was mad.
But Rampage was also convinced that they had poisoned him as well, which you know is highly unlikely, probably, right? As well.
What the fuck going on? Somebody gotta explain this in the comments, man. Cause we need more. What?
There's the fact that he was going to get paid more to lose. But honestly, I wouldn't put that past Pride either. So with that being said, make what you want of the Sakuraba fight. Because whatever the reason he'd been brought there, Rampage still ended up making an impression on everyone, slamming Saku several times and getting out of submissions. It was after that fight that Bas Rutten came up to him and broke down his future in Japan.
You're gonna be a rock star here if you keep your line straight, man. If you keep your head straight.
Is Baz Rutten tell you gonna be a yeah? You gonna be yeah. If Baz Rutten say you gonna be the GOAT, you gonna be him. I ain't gonna lie, bro. We should do it like a Baz Rutten just straight Pinterest highlights. This straight.
You're gonna be gigantic here.
Jackson's Japanese adventure had just begun, and by the following year, he was being matched up with big names like Vachanchin and Randleman and blasting through him. He had an exciting style, he won over the crowd, but more than anything, a lot of his backstage interviews had given fans a look at Jackson's personality, and he was a lot of fun.
How's it hanging, man? How you doing?
They hanging pretty good. I shaved them up last night. First, I'm gonna walk to the ring, then I'm gonna get in there, and then I probably start throwing some punches. Then I probably use a foot or a knee. You know, I'm gonna go out there and try to excite the crowd and do some naughty things.
After a big win over Kevin Randleman, Rampage's best victory to
He
date,
beat
the
Kevin
camera is
Randleman?
panned to the current
The
Pride
Savage.
middleweight champion Vanderlei Silva, looking on from the crowd. Now this is Vanderlei Silva, Pride royalty. Everything revolved around their champion, and Rampage
The
was again
Savage.
kind of betting against the house, trying to go up against not just this guy, but essentially the promotion at the same time.
At least that's what Rampage is thinking.
Speaking of Vanderlei punk ass, motherfucker, you should never have touched me. I'm gonna go slam me on your motherfucking head so hard.
The first time I had a run in with Vanderlei, the elevator opens up and it's Vanderlei in there with two of his corner men. Just walk on the elevator and I turn around and my two corner men took off. He seemed like he was mad that I was breathing his same air in the fucking elevator.
Meanwhile, over in America, the UFC has been slowly gaining popularity.
He's the bro. Wanderlei is a savage. After watching Wanderlei, he's a savage. That's where I came to. He's a savage.
One of the ones. Of the dark ages, but Pride was still by far just leading the way.
Way before the UFC could ever do this, Pride was selling out 90,000 seat stadiums.
Pride was like almost at the level of NBA is here in Japan. My cornermen, they would go. And
I did not know that.
Newspaper, and I'd be on the front page of the fucking newspaper.
Wow.
Dana went along to Pride to see what the show was all about and what opportunities were on the table.
Dana was sitting first row, and I say, you watch, when this starts here, it's the most insane thing. I mean, the sound, the music, everything they have, it's so powerful, so cool. And I'm looking at Dana, and he goes like, wow, he looks at me like, this is my insane.
So Dana saw this as his best opportunity to get Chuck in there with Vanderlei.
Dana White and Saki Kibara-san, they made a bet, a $250,000 bet.
Now, we already talked about what an icon this man would become, and the Iceman definitely was one of the most beloved among MMA fans, but he hadn't crossed that line into pop culture just yet.
It started with a little smack talk between me and the president of Pride, and now Chuck's over there, and he's gonna beat up their light heavyweight division. I'll put my money where my mouth is. Chuck's gonna wipe that whole thing out.
He was trying to get him to have me fight Vanderlei first. I
don't know why he trying to get you to do that. Because Vanderlei ain't nothing to play with in Pride. Maybe you don't see, but Pride, leave Vanderlei alone. But Dana's smooth. I didn't know Dana was on this early. Dana was on that early. Dana was like smart.
That's all he wanted. He wanted me to fight Vanderlei.
But here's Rampage Jackson, so kind of caught in the middle of these two promotional superstars, thinking he was going to fight Vandy at first for the belt. He'd now, though, have to battle through an entire tournament, and one that probably wasn't really even that fair.
You know those Grand Prix and stuff like that? They lie like they pulled names out of the head of who fight who. They already
pre-bracketed.
Yeah,
of course.
They set their tournament up for Vanderlei to win. Did you know that?
Nah, man, I ain't going for it. Now Rampage, I ain't going for it because bro.
Fuck no.
Nah.
And I'm gonna stand on
we
that.
can't, no.
You can get in my DM. You can get in my DM all you want every day.
Nah, the Savage, he won them, bro. I watched them fight. I watched them. Wanderlei and Pride. Come on, man. Savage.
Yeah, no, that's why Dana was trying to goad him in.
Let me know in the comments what y'all think, though.
Now, obviously, I've got no way of knowing if what Rampage is saying is actually true, but take a look at the bracket for yourself, and you.
Chuck versus me. It seems pretty like, I mean, what he could have did. He could have did Rampage versus Wanderlei and then Chuck versus the other dude. Really the same. I mean, he's the Savage. Look at him. He's an animal.
You can decide. You know, one side you got Chuck Rampage, a former UFC champion, and Alistair Overeem, and on the other side, looks like Vandy has a pretty easy time. So Chuck has to fight Alistair Overeem. Rampage gets the former UFC champ.
Now, to me, it kind of seems like Rampage was getting caught in the crossfire of Pride's attempt to absolutely stack the tournament against an invading Chuck Liddell.
Both men get through the opening stage, beating their opponents, and then get about 2 months to prepare for the next fight.
You came to me and you talked to me. You was like, "Hey, looks like it's gonna be us next. Let's go to a bar and have a drink." I said, "Oh shit!"
Now it was all going down November 9th, 2003.
Damn,
last 2 stages.
Now that's some cool shit.
Dana White was there, ready to see his fighter take on the Pride champ. Now Quinton was focused on getting his own chance to beat Vandy. Before the fight with Chuck, the Pride execs apparently paid him a visit.
They cost me a fight with my fight with Vanderlei. They told me, "We want you to beat the shit out of Chuck."
By the time the two men were opposite each other in the ring, there was a hell of a lot of tension in the air, and it was going to be a very good fight. They traded on the feet, they landed ground and pound on each other throughout the first 10 minutes, but by the end of the round, it was Chuck that was looking way more tired.
Chuck looks exhausted. He looks tired. I'm shocked.
He hit me with one of the hardest body shots I ever done in my life. I made him all like, ooh, and I went in for the takedown, and I was saved by the bell.
Then Jackson did as the Pride promoters had asked. He took Chuck down and dropped punishment until they called off the fight. But Rampage had secured himself a shot at Vanderlei.
I want to see them highlights.
And remember what Rampage had said.
Game game plan is beat Chuck, then I got to fight Mandalay. Cause I know Mandalay's going to beat, he got him some weak-ass Japanese guy. Yeah, but to embarrass Chuck. It's going to cost me, and so I got to take Mandalay down and beat him up on the ground. I got to ground and pound, and it's going to be a different fight.
Who knows if Rampage would have beaten Wanderlei Silva that night if he hadn't used so much energy against Chuck. But to be fair, Wanderlei had gone to a hard-fought decision with Hidehiko Yoshida, and his fight was after Rampage's, meaning he actually had less time to recover. Now, granted, Rampage said, you know, the fight with Chuck was very hard, but he kind of made it look easy. But for Rampage, if he wanted another reason to be angry at Pride FC, he was about to get one. The look on Rampage's face before the fight is hard to decipher. He looks ready to kill, but also a little bit nervous. Rampage came out, waited about 5 seconds before he took him down to the mat. He was on top for a few minutes, but the Pride referee didn't think Rampage was doing enough. And so he stood them both up. And Rampage was pissed. Now just completely gassed, the Axe Murderer ran over him and cut through Quinton with knees, and just like that, the Pride Grand Prix was over, and Pride's middleweight champion was still on top.
Wanderlei the Savage.
So
I'm sorry.
Didn't exactly go to plan.
I'm sorry, Rampage. I love you to death, but I think he won it first, right, man? He's the Savage.
That night. But that single win over Chuck Liddell in the tournament would go on to mean more than perhaps any of his other victories in Pride. Jackson had no choice after the Grand Prix. He went back to the Pride roster and started taking some pretty fun fights. You know, he got in there with Middleman and obliterated him, and then got matched up with a top contender in Pride, the Brazilian Tiger Ricardo Arona, who'd only ever lost to Fedor. Now, this was kind of another...
He only lost to Fedor? He gotta be him at the end. He gotta be that guy if he only lost the
big moment for Rampage. Rampage got on top, but after he ate an up kick from Arona, the Tiger then tried to convince the ref that he'd knocked Rampage out.
I've only lost my temper once in a fight.
What was the fight where you lost your temper?
Oh, when I powerbombed that guy.
Again, Rampage does not trust the Pride officials at this point, and if your opponent is trying to tell them you're unconscious, well, fuck that. He doesn't want to lose this fight.
Well, that made me lose my temper when he told the referee that I was knocked out. God, I was like, they couldn't make me lose this fight on my birthday?
Ricardo goes for a triangle choke, and Rampage picks him up and tries to slam him through the planet.
And I've never lost my temper in a fight.
Try to slam him through the planet.
They tried to get that slam outlawed and everything. They were trying to make it illegal.
It is still one of the most viral knockouts of all time, and with that one slam, Rampage's popularity exploded in Japan.
I got so popular in Japan that the Yakuza, the head boss, wanted to meet me, and I went and met with the Yakuza, right? Yeah, but when I went into this room, these guys were watching Jackass, and they were smoking weed. The dude boss walked in, man, he had to be like 6'4", 6'6". He wanted to give me $1 million just to start a clothing line. The whole time my ex-wife was in my ear saying, we shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be here. She said, this is super VIP. She said, we're not allowed to be here.
Yeah, so that's a pretty interesting story. Pride had ties to the Yakuza, and that's ultimately what got them shut down and how they lost their TV deal. But
damn, it was some real shit going on, huh? To the Yakuzas. Why they be looking so tall though in Japanese? They be 6'4", 6'6". All them niggas. I be like, what the?
The fighters must have known something was going down the whole time.
Fedor.
Surely.
One of them.
Yeah, you go in their hotel room and they have a big fucking stack of cash right there. Brand new cash, and the ink run up on your thumb.
Yeah.
Are you sure it was real cash? No, it was real cash.
It was cash.
It's real cash.
It worked.
After that win, Jack...
Stop playing with Pride. Hey, they paid their fighters though. Stop playing.
Jackson had done enough and got enough attention to give him a second shot at Wanderlei, and this time it was going to be for the Pride Middleweight Championship. But what happens next is honestly a journey into the bizarre. So Rampage had what you could only call a religious experience. After beating Ricardo, Rampage had stayed in Japan for a few weeks partying, and it kind of got to the point where he was aware he had to slow down, but he kept finding himself back in the bar every night. You know, he'd never drunk 2 days in a row before, but now he was kind of heading for self-destruction, and that was his own words. So Quinton kind of started having some bad dreams.
One day I just had this crazy dream. It seemed like it was a devil in my chest with his hands like this. I'll never forget. Had some female spirits around, and he was saying, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. I heard a voice say, do you know this man? I was like, no. And he said, well, you're not okay. And I jumped up. I was scared as fuck. You know, I'm a big bad motherfucker fucking people up.
And yeah, unfortunately for Rampage at this point, it didn't stop there either.
And I got back in my car. As soon as I turned the radio on, it said, the curse of such and such, your soul is mine. That scared the shit out of me. I found out later it was a fucking commercial for Revenge of the Mummy ride in fucking Six Flags.
So all of this led to him becoming a born-again Christian and seeking spiritual salvation.
That's the first day of training camp for Vanderlei. Coach thought I was crazy. He brought a preacher in. I was like, I'm gonna kill this motherfucker. I'm gonna kill him. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, I'm Christian now. I can't be thinking like that.
He'd read that the best way to deal with these dreams was to abstain from sex, food, and water. Do a bit of a fast. And he did that just a few days out from his fight with Vanderlei Silva.
How many days out
They fought
from the fight
again?
were you fasting?
I think I fasted for 3 or 4 days. And I didn't have to cut weight. That's my first time I had to cut weight for my fight. So.
Wow.
He didn't tell anyone and thought it wouldn't affect his performance, but it did. Now, the fight played out almost the same as the first, but just when Rampage was looking a little tired at the end of the first round, he dropped Silva. After that, though, Coach David Oyama noticed that Rampage was unusually tired, and suddenly he could barely get up, and Vanderlei was just stomping on him. And then, once again, he just got decapitated by knees. Vanderlei Silva remained the Pride champion undefeated after 18 fights in the organization. So Rampage would go on to kind of continue the campaign against Vanderlei Silva's team Shooter Box. First, he took on Ninja Hua in an incredibly close fight, one at the time that Rampage thought he lost, but he was still given the decision anyway, which was something that kind of pissed off a fair few people, including his brother Shogun. And then when Rampage entered the 2005 Grand Prix tournament, and after they
Shogun had a brother that fought
out of a hat, it turns out Rampage was going to have to fight Ninja's brother Shogun in the first round. And this guy was out for revenge.
Shogun rule.
And you know, Rampage Jackson kind of just didn't look like Rampage Jackson that night.
Quentin should get out.
He beat me?
This is very dangerous. Come on, he lost 2 fights like this. He's tired or hurt or something. He doesn't look right.
For pretty much 5 minutes, Shogun Hua just attacked Rampage until he couldn't take any more. He'd broken his ribs early, and it seemed like Shogun was the new guy on the rise. He was going to be the new champion.
Dang, I ain't know. Yo, what? Shogun said stop playing with me, man.
And he went on to win the whole tournament.
I gotta watch some shows now.
He goes down. He's down. And Chuck Liddell. Oh, he is out. Light heavyweight champion of the world.
Chuck Liddell had captured the UFC title, knocking out Randy Couture in round 1. His loss to Rampage Jackson now feels like a million miles away at this point, and the Iceman is just breaking into the mainstream. He's about to embark on a year-long knockout streak, becoming the biggest star in UFC history. So back in Japan, Rampage Jackson is kind of no longer looked at as a title challenger, and his resentment towards the Pride executives for the way he felt he'd been treated before only grew stronger. Despite those 2 losses, Rampage still felt he was beloved by the fans, but apparently, according to Jackson, Pride just didn't see it that way.
I don't know what their problem was. They wouldn't promote me at all, and like cheat me out of my money from the toys and t-shirts, not paying me. You know, when my contract was up, I want to, like, man, I want to make more money. Like, it's time for me to make more money. Like, all telling me you're nobody.
Yukino informed me, why you heading this meeting? Why you bringing this meeting to us? You a nobody. And I was like, wow. I said, wow, I'm a nobody? Okay, Yukino, I'm gonna remember that next time you want me to fight.
So after trying to negotiate his new contract with Pride and just not being happy with the results, Rampage decided it was time to leave Japan.
Yukino and Hideki, they didn't like me. They fucking hated me. Like when Pride came out with the first video game, they knew I love video games. They didn't put me in a video game on purpose. I was in Pride before Shogun, and they put Shogun in the game.
And lucky for him, an old US MMA promotion was just being brought back from the dead. Well, really, I mean, the WFA was a promotion most known for Frank Trigg earning a title shot after bullshotting Dennis Hallman, or Chemo getting that weird toe injury. Actually, look, let's be real. Most of you probably know it because of UFC Undisputed, the video game. And of course, it's still in the latest UFC video games, even though they haven't done a show since 2006. Either way, WFA was a resurrection of an old Las Vegas promotion that had tried to cross MMA with a nightclub vibe. And this new 2006
That's hard, though.
Had a load of money to splash around. So what came out of it was WFA King of the Streets, the one and only attempt to resurrect this dead promotion, but they managed to book some big names. Jason Miller, Lyoto Machida, Bas Rutten, making his return to MMA, and of course, Rampage Jackson. Quinton signed a very, very lucrative contract with the WFA, one that also guaranteed him pay-per-view points. But with only about 50,000 pay-per-view buys sold for this one event, Rampage apparently didn't really get anything. But he headlined the event and he took on Matt Linland, another big name, in a close fight that went to a split decision. Just 2 weeks before all of this happened, UFC 61 went down in Vegas. And it was during this show that it was announced Chuck Liddell would finally be fighting in Vegas. It was during this show that it was announced Chuck Liddell would finally be fighting Wanderlei Silva in November. But the negotiations for that one completely fell apart. Wanderlei instead went on to fight Mirko Krokop at heavyweight, and then when they tried to rebook the fight, he had a concussion from getting head kicked. So Chuck instead fought Tito Ortiz for a second time and added another knockout to his streak, making it 7 in a row since his last loss. And that had been at the hands of Rampage Jackson. So after failing to win the title in Pride and eventually leaving that organization, you'd think Jackson hadn't really achieved all he wanted. But one thing he carried that still held a ton of weight was that one win over Chuck Liddell. And because of that, Dana White actually decided to buy out the entirety of the WFA just to bring Rampage Jackson in to rematch Chuck Liddell.
See, the UFC, they brought WFA for my contract.
First of all, though, in the UFC, Rampage got a chance at revenge himself. He fought Marvin Eastman, a guy who handed Jackson his first loss way back in the King of the Cage, and to a guy who's fought on that WFA card with him. But Rampage went out there and shattered Marvin with uppercuts and knocked him out in the second round. With that win, the UFC had the excuse they needed
I want him to show me these fights,
Chuck in the rematch that fans wanted to see. The fight was scheduled for UFC 71, and going into it, Chuck was basically being called unbeatable. There's also the fact that Chuck had already avenged all of his other losses, every one of them except for Rampage. But guys like Randy Couture believed Jackson was out of his slump and was gonna beat the champion. And for Rampage, remember that WFA contract I mentioned earlier with pay-per-view points? Well, because they bought Rampage while he was still under that contract, they had to honor it, which meant Rampage was gonna get paid for this fight.
So when I fought Chuck, they gave me...
Swear to God.
Good money.
I made like millions.
Oh,
what?
Don't bring it up.
I made about 7 million.
Whoa.
God, Dana. Damn, that's crazy. I bet Dana seen that and was like, what the fuck is we doing? Yo.
With all the hype Chuck had generated over the years and all of the build-up towards Rampage coming over from Pride, the fight itself was over pretty quickly. Jackson stalked forward, the Iceman backed up, and in under 2 minutes, Rampage landed a right hand that dropped the champion.
I can't believe this. This place is in disbelief.
When you hit him with that shot, did you think that shot was hard enough to put him down?
Yeah, let me take this from you. Man, I threw them boulders. I was trying to knock his ass out because Chuck was head hunting.
Fans have been waiting years for a matchup between Pride and the UFC to put the two best guys against each other and see which promotion was better, but there was always just this one other guy that kept getting in the way.
I love Chuck Liddell. He's one of the fighters that I respect the most. Even before I stepped in that cage, I was already champion. That belt was mine. To me, I just knew there was no way Chuck was going to beat me.
With Chuck knocked out and a new champion crowned, the fight with Wanderlei, it didn't really mean that much anymore, and it kind of seemed like Rampage was just better than Chuck this whole time anyway. Twice the Iceman was the best UFC had to offer, and twice he'd been broken by the same man. And the UFC apparently were not happy about it.
The MMA fans wasn't ready for me. It made Chuck look bad, like some unknown guy came and beat Chuck. I actually told the UFC, I'm like, no, like let me get a couple fights in where people know me, and I felt like they were like, no, you could lose.
I mean, it honestly sounds like the UFC just weren't expecting Rampage to win. And the way he tells it, after he knocked out their poster boy, the atmosphere around him kind of changed.
I actually felt bad, like, oh, I hope Chuck can come back from this and stuff like that. And he did.
And kind of sadly, he was right. Liddell would go on to lose to an up-and-comer, Keith Jardine. He then beat Wanderlei in a fantastic fight, but then would lose the next 4 by knockout. And the UFC's biggest star
it was like that.
Been broken. At the point that Rampage beat Chuck for the title, Pride FC had ceased to exist. And after their dealings with organized crime and the Yakuza became public, they lost their TV license, and the promotion was eventually just sold to the UFC. But right before the promotion ended, Wanderlei Silva had lost his belt to Dan Henderson, who was now in the UFC as well. And Dana White wanted to unify the titles between the two promotions. So after all this time, everyone thinking the guy to do that was going to be Chuck Liddell, Rampage Jackson suddenly stands in a position to hold the 2 belts from both promotions. Coincidentally or not, the fight wasn't going to be on pay-per-view this time, but on Spike TV. But that meant Rampage wasn't going to get paid anywhere near the same amount as before.
Was on it.
Millions of people were going to watch him take on Dan Henderson.
Dana said never again.
London. And this time last year, Rampage wasn't even signed to the UFC. 5 million people watched Jackson take it to Dan Henderson across 5 rounds, and when the final bell rang after years of Pride versus the UFC, Rampage Jackson was the last man standing, with both of those titles now unified under his name.
Damn, that's hard.
Now, this was a fun story to pick out from among MMA history, an underdog story, really, during the changing of an MMA era. And my intention, obviously, wasn't to sit here and tell you that Rampage is some kind of godlike figure. You know, the guy did plenty of things in his career that pissed off a ton of people.
What is he doing? Yo, what is Rampage on, bro? Like, bro, this man is insane, bro.
Okay, and Quentin himself is quite clearly a man who, you know,
he don't like
grudges
Orihwani, though.
sometimes
He hate
feels that
Uri.
the world is against him, and I think that's also what drove him so hard to become a world champion. I mean, Pride might actually have loved him. This was all told from his perspective and from the stories he's told
you never
us.
know.
But wherever the lines of truth get blurred, what I love is that one man stood against many and walked away with the ultimate prize: personal vindication.
All right, then, that is the story.
That's a fact. Personal vindication. That is a fact. I ain't gonna. I'm gonna keep it 100. I wanted to see more highlights in this, but it's all right. It's okay. He ain't show highlights. We usually get highlights. He ain't show highlights. It's cool. But look, bro, I'm not even gonna lie to y'all, man. I didn't really know that they started to merge everything. The UFC started to buy up everybody. Talk about a monopoly, but UFC said, "Come here, let me hold that. Let me hold that. Let me hold that." That's crazy. That's insane. I didn't know all that, bro. I gotta go back and watch the UFC ones and all that other stuff, man. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do that. Let me know in the comments who y'all want me to discover next, react to next. And I appreciate everybody who be commenting, liking, subscribing. Y'all some real ones for that. You know what I'm saying? Watch other videos I got. You know what I'm saying? Whatever y'all want to watch, whatever y'all, you know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna see y'all next, man. Okay.